Hello, this is Lorraine Appleyard here, and welcome to my channel, where I bring to you soul light solutions, solutions for your soul to help bring more soul, spirit, and magic into your life. On this episode of Soul Light Solutions, I have with me a lovely lady who is a medium. She's also a creator and a public relations manager for Manifest Media Public, which is a spiritually based boutique that does PR, that has the sole purpose to support others in their spiritual business. On top of that, she is also married. She's a Southern transplant to Connecticut, and she's a mom of 3 boys and twins. So I don't know where she gets the time for everything, but I would like to introduce to you, please, Beth Holloway. Thank you very much for joining me, Beth. It's a pleasure to be able to speak with you.
It's so nice to be here, Lorraine. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Oh, Beth, tell me, you're a medium. Tell me about your journey into mediumship. Have you always been a medium? Help me understand a little bit about that.
Sure. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. Like so many mediums, I want to say I've always known, I've always had a knowledge of my link to spirit. They've kind of just always been there. Since my earliest childhood memories, but I didn't really interact a whole lot after age 5 or 6. I kind of honestly shut the door like many times. The door would open or creak open and I'd shut it. I'm not ready. I don't want to do that. Until I would say I started in my early 20s having out of body experiences voluntarily during the night. And the last one, I culminated in the seventh one being really profound for me. And I kind of just cataloged that. I'm like, okay, this is something else I've learned about our soul and what happens, when we separate from our body. So I know this now. I can't forget that. But I still wasn't ready to pursue mediumship yet. That didn't happen until a few years ago. I'll start, there were 3 main events. And I'll start the first one. I lost my mother in 2014. And when she passed, she lived 1,000 miles away from me. And when she passed, I knew the moment that she passed because her spirit came through my body to say goodbye. I knew it was her. I called the police to go get her. It was very emotional, but it was beautiful at the same time. It was the most amazing, beautiful, profound experience I've ever had. The second event was in 2020. I found out my birth father wasn't my birth father. So I tracked down through DNA, found my birth family, and my birth father had passed in 2007. And so I did find 2 half siblings, but what I learned was that I'm so much like this man. And I sat on my bed while I was looking for him, and I prayed. That was just my process. And I said, please help me find this man. And as soon as I finished my prayer, I was about to stand up, and a man popped into my third eye, into my awareness, and it was like a video, like a quick video, and I saw him like move his hair to the side. I saw what he was wearing, and I was like, oh wow. And so the search angel who was helping me find my family, a few days later, she gave me some pictures of people they were their obituary photos or their living photos. And I saw the same man I saw in my awareness. I said, that's him, that's my dad. And she said, well, we don't know, we have to rule the others out first. And I said, well, okay, but he's the one. I know. And sure enough, he ended up being the one. And all signs did not point to him, so it was a surprise. So that was the second big thing. The third big thing was I had a really serious illness right around that same time, and it kind of just catapulted me into kind of like an Anita Morjani kind of situation where she had cancer and was in the hospital dying, and she returned to, I guess she had a near-death experience, or she had an awakening, and she knew that she was supposed to be here for a reason, and they sent her back. And I kind of had a similar thing where I just knew this was the time I needed to open to spirit. And so that's when I really stepped into my power and I said, okay, save me, because I have children to raise. I have 3 teenage boys. And, if you will spare me or help me to heal, then I will work for you, in my way and my time, because I still have a very busy life. And that's what happened. That was the impetus to begin, was that third one. Yeah. So that's it.
So, I mean, and that really is quite remarkable. So I'm gonna backtrack on that a little bit because you talked about astral projection.
Yeah.
Now, as a young person, I also had astral projection. Tell me, what is that experience? How do you define that experience? Just for someone that may not fully understand, what is astral projection?
It's definitely a separation of the soul from the body. And I'll give the last example really briefly. I was visiting my great aunt and her husband in West Virginia, my ancestral home. And they had I had gone to bed. I was a guest, and so I said goodnight early so they didn't have to stay up. And I was you go up their stairs, and to the right was my room, and to the left was their room. And I'd known them my whole life, so they would keep their door open when they went to sleep. They had separate beds because they had different medical conditions. So they had separate beds. They wouldn't keep each other awake, and they always sat in bed and watched Johnny Carson at the end of the night. So I went to my room, shut the door, I laid in my bed, and I always fall asleep right away, just really quickly. And I laid my head down, went to sleep, and within a few minutes, I was standing in the hallway by their room, and I was kind of looking in. I could see their feet at the end of their bed, and I could see Johnny Carson on TV, and I could see the stairs down there. And I thought, why am I here? I didn't remember walking to their room. And I turned to look at the room where I was staying, was just next to the stairs, and the door was closed. And I thought, if I'd walked out that door, I would have left the door open so I could go back in there. The door was closed, and I knew that meant that my body was in that room and I was on the stairs. I didn't have the courage to look down and see if I had a body, but I knew right then, as soon as I had that thought, that awareness, I popped back into my body and I woke up, and only about, I would say it was like 7 or 8 minutes had passed.
So, in having that awareness or having that experience, rather, that gave you the awareness that we are a soul
Yes.
and we have a physical body. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. But what it really gave me, honestly, was comfort in knowing that when I lose that physical body, when I shed that vessel, that I will still exist. That, it might not be Beth, but that my soul will still be here. I still had the same intelligence, the same awareness. I was still my personality. I just didn't have the body.
And that is a huge realization, right? Like to be able to recognize that there is something beyond just this physical body. And it's not even that someone's told you that, but now you have that experience.
Yeah, it's like evidence. I think I wouldn't have believed. I think it always seemed like someone else's story that they experienced that out of body experience, the astral projection. And it was interesting to read. It's like reading about a near death experience. You don't truly understand it until you have that experience, which I haven't. But that definitely, the astral projection gave me that validation I needed to know that that's true. That we do go on, which I think also informs your mediumship in a way, that we know we've been on that side where we've been out of our body as a soul. And so I think that, we know that there are other spirits, out here, just to support.
Absolutely. It makes your mediumship, makes you as a medium to be really able to speak from your own experience, which ultimately, in the end, that's what a medium really is. It's being able to share these experiences, to be able to be that bridge to the other world. But you're a mediumship teacher, so you'll understand that you would teach from your experience. right?
That's a really good point. And I honestly, I don't think I've ever put two and two together with,
Ah,
I mean, I do, sure. I do teach from my learning experience, but I guess I've never really considered the fact that I've experienced, being out of my body. And I guess there's a comfort level in knowing that I could communicate with someone if I needed to get a message to a loved one. So that's a really good point that I've not really taken into consideration. But you're right, I do. I think we all speak from our experience, even if it's not an astral projection experience.
and that's what I was kind of I wanted to be able to sort of hone in on, is that having these experiences gave you a knowing that you were able to then expand upon. And it's sort of like a mystical experience. And really, that's what mediumship is. It's a mystical experience.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I think that um I wonder if I would have the same, I guess the same, what's the word I'm looking for? Desire maybe, or willingness is a better word, to pursue mediumship had I not had those experiences. Because I do know some
Mm.
who never had any mystical experiences prior to opening to mediumship. And I did, so I guess I can't really say, from the other perspective, but I just wonder how that's different for different people. That that's gives me something to some food for thought.
So, because you spoke about having experiences as a young person and then really always having the sense of knowing, this sense of knowing that there is something more, having those intuitive experiences. So tell me how those experiences have helped you in your mediumship and what made you decide to go further into teaching?
Oh, good questions. So I think, so growing up, I had, a variety of experiences. I had imaginary friends. I
Yes.
I remember being, like 5 years old and telling my mom, we lived in Germany when I was about, 4 to 8. And I had this whole family of imaginary friends, or, I didn't, they were very real to me. And and the main one was a girl my age, and I called her Peanut Head. And I can only assume that I called her this based on how she looked to me, and I can't remember that now. But she was very real to me, and I remember having a talk. Oh, and they lived below us, and we were on the first floor. The only thing below us was a basement.
Ah.
And the basement was scary to me when I went to the basement, which is interesting. The basement was scary, and it shouldn't have been if they lived there. But I remember talking to my mom about them, and she did, what every parent at some point does, not everyone, but she was like, well, they're not really real. Which is interesting because my mom definitely had psychic mediumship abilities. And so but she, I think in just a mood, she said that to me, and I felt really frustrated and disappointed and confused. What do you mean they're not real? And I thought that she could see them too. And it's almost like from that point, it's almost like they started to fade. They were less real to me,
Yeah.
less real to me. And other things, my mom and I definitely had a psychic connection, or a very intuitive connection that went through her mother and her mother, so up to my great grandmother. Which, a side note, I actually learned recently that I'm related to Edgar Casey. He's my fourth cousin, four times
No,
removed.
he
We
was an
have
inspiration of mine. Very cool.
really, see, so I have my new, I wouldn't have known this until recently anyway, because my birth father's family has Casey's. My third great grandmother is a Casey. And so his third great grandfather and my seventh great grandfather are the same ancestor. So anyways, my fourth cousin, four times removed, which, that just separates the generation. So fourth cousin, which was exciting to see. But my mom and I had a lot of weird experiences where, kind of telepathic. And each time you have one of those experiences, it just gives you that check. It gives you that validation that I'm connected, even if I'm not trying to be connected. I'm
Mhm.
connected. And and same with my mom, when she would reach out to me without knowing I was, in some sort of like suffering, or upset or something. And I'm like, how did you know? And she said, you're my daughter, we're connected. Um and she, in turn, would have similar experiences. But throughout my life, it was that way. And I would have feelings, I had a visitation from my great grandfather in my mom's house. We all saw spirits in my mother's house, and they weren't necessarily even connected there. I think they were just visitations. So all of that just served as validation, and I think some of that has definitely helped in my mediumship. I think I'm straying away from your first question, but I'll try to.
So, okay, it's all good.
Um,
I want
so
to double back now because you spoke about the experience as a child having these imaginary friends and kind of being told, well, they're not real, they are just, in fact, imaginary. Now, if someone were watching this that had a child that was very intuitive, very mediumistic, how would you encourage them to support that child? If taken from your own experience of how that affected you, what might you encourage someone to foster?
Well, I think it depends on, depends on the parent and their openness, of course. I think some people just wouldn't be open to it, but if it was someone who was willing to be open to it, I would just encourage dialogue. I would, have a conversation with my child whenever they discussed it. I don't know that I would initiate the conversation, maybe. But I did that with my oldest, who used to have dreams or memories, I would call them,
Sure.
of my husband and I and him living in another house somewhere at some other time. And he would call it the White House in the Woods. And we never lived in any other house with him. So, for using this as an example, whenever he would bring it up and he was in a comfortable space to talk about it, usually right before bed, I would say, what do you remember about there, when we lived there? And I wouldn't make it seem like I didn't know about it. I was just like, well, when we lived there, what do you remember? And I would just encourage the conversation, because I think that it supports their I guess joy about talking about it, because they have these memories just like imaginary friends that are very real to them. And I could see that it made him happy to reminisce about being there, even though it seemed to me that this might have been a memory from another lifetime. But I think just encouraging is the discussion is being supportive, and asking questions when you're in that kind of that heart space. And I think something else is, I wish that I'd asked him to draw it, to draw a picture or something like that. So yeah, I think just gentle nudging when they are open about it is such a great idea.
That's
Yeah.
lovely. That's because I know that a lot of parents of very intuitive children don't know how to have conversations when their children have an experience and and ultimately it sounds like the wrong message or the wrong statement could actually cause someone to shut down.
Yeah, and that's what happened in my experience. I do wonder, and I'd never really thought about it until now, but how would it have been different if my mom had in fact encouraged me instead? Or, even if she had gone so far as to pretend, if you will, that she saw them too, because she knew
Ah,
I talked about them frequently. So if she had said to me, well, I saw Peanut Head today, or, are your friends here? Or I think your friends are here, or something like that, rather than saying they don't exist, that would have been a different experience. And I wonder, would I always have seen them? Would I have always talked about them? Or how long would that have lasted? Yeah, I wonder that too. But
interesting. But then you've always had those nudges, even after that experience of sort of closing down, spirit always came back and nudged you along.
yeah, and I had a lot. Oh gosh, man, my mom, before she passed, she always wanted me to write a book, and I've got several books I've started, but none I've finished yet. But one of them was she wanted me to write down these experiences that I had, because she believed me, but she thought nobody would believe me if I didn't write them down. I So for instance, there was one, and it sounds almost too incredulous. It sounds like I actually like fiction, but there was one that when I lived in Kentucky, I lived all by myself. I moved 12 hours from home, and I went and had an experience. I got a job promotion, so I took it. And I was in my early 20s. I was out with friends at a club one night, and I'd gone there with my friends, and I noticed at the end of the night they were all gone. So I was a few miles from home. I didn't have a car. I didn't really have enough for a cab. And I'm like, well, how do I get home? Luckily, I had a quarter. So I went to call my friend, and he didn't pick up. And and I saw, so I was across the street, kind of catty corner from the club, and I saw this man I didn't know. He made a beeline towards me. He walked across the street and then walked over to me, and he stepped up to the payphone and he said, "Put the phone down and follow me now." He said, "Don't look behind you, just follow me now, trust me." And I thought, he was so commanding, I just knew I had to listen to him. So I followed him, and he was next to me, and he said, "Don't look back until we get across the street." So we got back to where we'd started, to the club. And when we got there, I turned around, and there were three men walking, and they all had these parkas, and like they had hoods up, their hoods were up. So you couldn't see their face at all. And I don't know, what if they planned to rob me or kidnap me, maybe not, but he certainly felt there was something nefarious. I think he felt the energy about them, and just kind of came to rescue me. So he gave me a ride home, and believe me, it gets weirder than all of that. He gave me a ride home. He was very kind. But I was just so nervous about being in the car with a stranger, and it occurred to me, I'm like, well, maybe he set this up with these people. Maybe he knows them and he set this all up. So he didn't. It was only a few miles to my house. He dropped me off and gave me his business card. And so I put it in my pocket, didn't look at it. And the next day, I went to my pocket, and there were two things in there, not just one. One, there was a plastic, it was a feather, and it wasn't a feather. It was plastic. I have no idea where this came from, but it was this long. It was a plastic feather, like angel wing, and that was there. But his name on his business card was Chance. His real name was Chancery. His last name was Bird, Byrd. So Chance Bird.
Wow.
And I mean, I honest to God, on my life, I could not make that up. It was true. And I did track him down about 15 years ago just to thank him again. But yeah, it was just, I've had so many experiences like that. It's been incredible.
Yeah, that reminds me of that saying about angels unaware, having that experience of being rescued by an angel, or you never know when we're entertaining angels. So that was a very chance meeting. Well, how interesting, hey? So tell me about, I know that we had talked before about mediumship, and there are some people that feel that mediumship, it's a gift, and therefore it should be given freely. And let's have a little bit of chat about that. So what is your philosophy around that?
Well, first of all, I don't see mediumship as a gift. Yes, it's a wonderful thing that we can share with other people, but I think it's our birthright. We're all born with this ability, and only some people choose to really pursue mediumship, especially, for other benefit of others. But I think calling it a gift infers separation, and it kind of tells other people that you can't do this, or you don't do this, or I'm special, or something like that. And I just don't, I encourage people to, if they don't do it to read for other people, to do it just so they have their own connection to their loved ones in the spirit world, which I think most people don't, unless that's their culture. Like I know I have a lot of friends who are Indian, and they just seem to have a natural connection to the spirit world because of their culture. And there are other people I know that do naturally, but most people don't pursue it, mediumship, or even know a lot about it. It's so I don't think it's a gift. I think it's a birthright. It's something we all have the ability to do. And as far as giving it away to people, you know, as a medium who, like most developing mediums, has poured a lot of money into classes, into mentorships. And I always say, as a teacher, I say, I'm not teaching you how to be a medium. That part's already covered. You were born with it. I'm just giving you the tools to hone in on how to, on How to connect, yes, well, you already connect, but there's sort of a process and a format with regards to the reading. And, so that's what I think it's about, ethics and responsibility and teaching sort of etiquette, definitely teaching the format of the reading. And that takes, it's almost like becoming a professional. No one does that for free. You work hard to get there, to polish yourself as a professional so you look credible. And I just feel like there's so much money that goes into that, and time. It took years to get here. I
Right.
didn't wake up. I didn't wake up and just say, I'm going to be a medium today. It took so much time. And my first year was extremely rigorous. I mean, I did probably, I would say, 150 classes in my first year, and I have the calendar to prove it. It's all highlighted, different classes, different things. But I also did, I did practice circles, I did development circles. And when I wasn't just participating, I was facilitating them, I was leading them, because I loved it and I couldn't get enough. And I wanted the practice and I wanted to help other people. I was at that kind of place where I knew enough that I could start to help other people too. So that was the beginning of my teaching. But yeah, definitely, I think we are giving our energy to other people, and that's an energy exchange. If someone pays me, it tells me, I appreciate you doing this. It doesn't have to be an exorbitant amount. But if they pay me what I believe is fair for my time, then that to me is a manner of respect. They recognize that I have spent time and money to develop into a person who has the ability to help them, connect. And I just think that it's really no different than any other service. It's a different process, of course, but a hairdresser to do your hair or a masseuse to massage you. So I think that it's fair. I think that I know that some people choose to give it away for free, and that's fine. But I
Right.
think at some point, they will get down the road and just feel like, okay, I'm exhausted and I never get anything out of this except for joy, of course, or just knowing that you've healed people. But at the end of the day, I'm a mom. I have a house to pay for, and I like to recoup some of everything that I earn as a medium goes back into my development. So yeah, that's helpful.
So what you're saying by that, it sounds to me like, and this is really similarly to how I feel, is that it's honoring your time and energy the same way that you would honor any other profession that's put invested years of practice, of development. It doesn't matter what profession that is. It takes time and energy in order to be able to develop that. And so it's that honoring. So I like the way that you've really um described all of the process involved with that, because not many people really truly understand the amount of work that goes into being a professional medium.
Yeah, it's funny that when you work in mediumship, you realize a lot of people just have no idea what mediumship is. I know that they know that we connect to spirit, the spirit world. But truly, I think most people don't know the difference between psychics and mediums. So I truly think a lot of people think we sit around with a crystal ball and
Mm.
we look into this crystal ball and we can tell them about their loved ones. So it's kind of different. I take the responsibility of mediumship very seriously. And whenever I have a client in front of me, I take 5 minutes to educate them on, how I connect, what is the mechanism through which I connect, because they can do it too. And I want to share that. And I want people to understand. So it takes kind of the mystery out of mediumship, or the woo-woo.
So
um,
take a moment and describe that then.
so what I do, in fact, it's funny because I have my little cue cards, just so I don't there's nothing that I forget. And then I also have like an opening that I like to say, which just to me is lovely and feels like we're getting into the energy of the reading. But so the things that I explain, I'll just read from my list. I always ask if they're okay with anything that comes through. Some people don't ask that, but a lot of people don't want to go back to the passing because it was a trauma and they don't want to relive that. So if they say, and the spirit, truly the spirit communicator, the spirit world knows what they are not okay with or they are okay with. So I don't have to ask, but it to me it feels like letting them know that I'm respectful of what they want. I always explain how, life is eternal. I ask them if they've been to a medium before. These are out of order. I give them a description of evidential mediumship. So, compared to different types of mediumship, physical mediumship, or what have you. What evidential is. I'm not a spiritual medium. That the information that I give, should be things that they can validate. And I explain that I need them just to answer yes or no. Or maybe I don't know, but generally yes or no. I do also explain the brainwave states to them, because we cycle through these brainwave states throughout our day, but I think so many people, even with evidence, don't equate what's happening to with mediumship kind of to science. And I think that's why I like to explain the breathing and the brainwave states is it makes it more factual. And I think it makes it, if you explain how we're using our five senses, which correlate to our clairs, and you explain it that way with regards to I'm whenever I look away, I'm going back into my link, but I'm also going down to an alpha theta brainwave state. And then when I look back at you, I'm in a beta brainwave state, and I'm giving you the information, waiting for your response. Then I go back down to that alpha theta brainwave state. And we do this throughout the day anyway. We cycle through all of the brainwave states. But they really appreciate even my short explanation. I also tell them that I'm not going to ask them any questions. And I also explain that I don't want them to ask me questions because I don't want them to feed me information. And then I just ask them if they have any questions before we get started. So it's pretty simple, but I like having the science in there, and just a brief overall kind of explanation of how the reading's going to go.
So when you give that science, it completely demystifies the experience. And that to me is important. And it goes back to how you're saying it's a birthright and we can all do it. It's a matter of learning how to train oneself to achieve these states of mind in order to become aware of spirit.
Yeah, and so I've actually got a class I'm going to, and when we get off this call, I'm going to call the person to set the date. But I'm teaching a class in my town, for just that. It's a class for people who are not mediums, for just laymen, to learn how to connect with their loved ones in the spirit world. And I will teach the brainwave states. I'll teach about quantum entanglement and how that's it's all related and we're still connected to our loved ones. But I'll just put them through some exercises, a little bit of writing, because I want them really to get in their feels. Clairsentience is so important, and I want them to be able to also set their grief aside. I learned that mechanism as a medium when they say move your mind. You set your mind aside, which is your ego or what have you, and you really get into that energy of sitting in the power of the spirit world and become aware of spirit. But I learned how also to move my anxiety, because I would have really bad anxiety or nervousness. And so one day I was just so nervous, and I thought, well, what can I do with this? Because it's ruining my readings. And I know it stems from being a perfectionist, because I don't want to make mistakes. So I just thought, well, what if I move that aside too? The same way I move my mind, what if I move my anxiety aside? So I did that. And it took me a couple tries, but finally I figured it out. And it's almost like I can be just normal, calm, non-anxious Beth, during my readings, because I know my anxieties, it'll be there when I'm done, it'll come back. But I just kind of stay to it, I acknowledge it and let it go. It's like, not now, I don't need you, you're not helping me. So then I do my reading, but I will teach them that same mechanism to set their grief aside. It's like you can grieve, but sometimes grief is a block or like a heavy blanket on you. So if you can just take that, don't get rid of it, not asking you to stop grieving, but just move it aside for a little while, so you can connect to the spirit world and really trust that they're there, and surrender and be open to that. I think but this is a class I'm teaching that everyone can do this. Yeah.
And I like how you talked about the grief and how it's like a heavy blanket, because I know that many people that have lost a loved one, and they say, I don't hear them, I don't feel them, I'm not able to make connection with them. How come? And it sounds like what you're saying is it's because of that heavy vibration of grief.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people tell other people, well, it's because you're not open. And I
Mm.
disagree with that. I think that when I think that I'm trying to explain think of how I want to explain this. But I think that, some people can be open, but they don't realize that their grief has them in I don't want to say depression, but sadness is just a different state. And so let's put it this way. Whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I've got a headache, or I'm sick, or I'm feeling a lot of anxiety, I will not give a reading. I will call my client and I will reschedule. I'll just say, you know what, my energy is off today, and I really want to give you the reading you deserve. So would it be okay if we wait a couple days and reschedule? So it's the same thing, when someone I mean, imagine trying, if you just lost someone close to you, trying to go in with that energy and give a reading to somebody else. It just seems like an impossible task. So the way I'm doing it is just explaining that, the grief is going to be there until it works itself out in time. But sometimes people have, I forgot the word for it, where it's that long grief where they're just in it for a long time. So I'm giving them a new tool in their toolbox just to move it, where it's not going to be productive if you have it there during these exercises. So just set it here on the desk, move it over here, put it in a box if you need to have that visual, and you can come back to that when we're done. But I want them to feel, light of spirit. I want them to feel like this is going to be a joyful experience, this reunion. So I don't want them to go there with a heavy heart, I guess, is, kind of the explanation.
I think that that's a lovely explanation, because I know that there are many people that are struggling with grief, because of losing a loved one. And so that can be helpful for them to be able to understand that they too can put that aside. And it's not stopping the grieving process. It's not asking them to stop grieving. It's just simply moving that aside for the time being, to allow yourself to connect. And actually, it's really quite beautiful. It's a wonderful tool to be able to give that to someone.
Thank you. And I I guess kind of without realizing it, did that during my grieving process after I lost my mom. We had been so close, and she was sick for a very long time, and her passing wasn't exactly surprising. No, I want to say it wasn't exactly unexpected, but it was surprising. The timing was kind of off because she was doing better. Um, but when she passed, what I realized, and I stood up in front of, I don't know, there must have been 50 people there or so, and I gave her eulogy. And everyone was just sobbing. And I didn't think I would be able to get through the eulogy because my mom and I were best friends. We were very close. And, just having lost her, well, we had a conversation the night before she passed. And just it all hit me on the morning of her service that, wow, that was the last conversation. Wait, when was the last time I saw her? That was at Christmas. Oh, but we were all together. Well, she was happy for that. But so I stood up there and I did the eulogy, and I surprised myself while I was giving it that I didn't shed a tear, I didn't break down. I was very sturdy and very present and just composed. And I wondered how I could do that because I didn't think I would. And why was everybody else so sad? And thinking back, that's what I did, was I just moved my sadness aside. That I thought, I want to be here for my mom, and I want to say all the things I want to say about her life, and not break down because I wanted to be eloquent and, give her what she deserved. So not that, breaking down shows me, it makes me seem, any other way than someone who loved her. But I wanted to say what I wanted to say and then go back to my seat and cry.
Yeah.
But
That's actually beautiful. It really is. And it impresses upon me also how we're talking about experience and how teaching from experience. And so that really sort of illustrates that you've done that too. It's not just you're not just whipping it out there. This is speaking from your own experience and being able to teach how to be able to do that from your own experience. That's actually very wonderful to be able to put it in those words.
And also, I want to add one thing about teaching this class specifically, because I'm going out to the community. It's not the community of mediums. I'm going out to the broader community.
Mm.
Is that I want to, at the very beginning, I'll talk about, I will talk about my mediumship journey very briefly. But I want to explain how, for me, getting to know what the spirit world is like, getting to be able, or learning the process of connecting to the spirit world, or with the spirit world, not connecting, because that also went for a separation. I don't think we're not connected, we're always connected, but becoming aware of the spirit world, has given me a lot of peace with my mom's passing. Yeah, there are definitely times that I have broken down because I missed her, and primarily I just missed her physical presence. I missed the phone calls. I missed, baking with her and stuff like that. But truly, I know she's there. There are so many people, when you do readings, most people want to know, are they okay? And
Right.
this just gives them that reassurance that not only are they okay, but they've never been closer to than they are now. Now there's no even physical separation. If you want, feel them, they're here with you. Even if you don't feel them, they're still here with you. All you have to do is have the thought of them, and they're there. So I just want to give them, what comforted me when I lost the person who meant the most to me, at that time. And our mother is the first person who ever loved us, so that's my experience, and I'm teaching from, a deep place of love, when I'm giving this class, because I'm hoping everyone else will connect to their loved one, in the same way, and have the same meaningful connections.
Yeah, I like the way you describe that, Beth. I think that's very, very nice. And again, it sort of normalizes the whole process. Now, you touched a little bit um, about when we're talking about mediumship and it being a birthright, about how some cultures are just naturally much more spiritual, and I feel that that is why the Western world struggles with mediumship so much, is because we're just really, it's not within our culture.
Yeah, that's a big topic. That's a really big topic.
It is.
And I have to say, you mentioned the fact that I'm a Southerner, and I am. I was raised in the Bible Belt. We were Southern Baptist.
Oh,
We went to church. We didn't go to church every Sunday, especially when I was older. But when I was young, church was a thing we did, and it was, Sundays, and we would go down. After we had the service, we would go down into the basement, and we'd have a meal, and commune with people, and that was our church family, was our family. So I remember coming out as a medium. I kind of did it in an interesting way, but I was terrified, because I thought all the people, when I did it on Facebook, which is, pretty much everybody I know is on there, all the people I went to high school with, people I babysat for, people I worked with, my family, my extended family. And I just thought, all the people on here who are going to judge me, you know. But what I did was I made a video and I explained it. It's like about 8-minute video. It's kind of long, but I wanted to explain it how I felt it. I wanted it to come from my heart. So when I made the video, I made a note of the number of friends that I had on Facebook, because I have a lot of Bible thumping Christian friends, which I love them and I'm a Christian, but I feel like they can sometimes be judgmental, in general, not just, these specific friends, but Christians, who seem to, and I think this is just the way that the culture around Christianity is, that they don't accept mediumship, or they think that it's, talking to demons or whatever.
wrong.
And
Yeah.
gosh, so, and I had a difficult time, thinking, oh, I have to be one or the other. I have to be Christian or a medium. I don't. I can be a Christian. I can be a medium too. But when I did this video to come out as a medium, to come out of the closet, I took note of the number of friends that I had, and I waited a couple days, and I went back and looked to see how many people disconnected from me as a friend, and I didn't lose a single person. And I just thought, that was much ado about nothing. I was so worried that people were gonna just be like, oh, she's
Wow.
crazy, I'm gonna unfriend her right now, and no one did. And I'm like, nobody cares, no one cares. So I wish I'd done it sooner. So
I love that, because a lot of people do struggle with with coming out of the closet, for myself included. I struggled. I was in the closet, many, 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 many years before I came out openly. But what really impresses upon me is that those that really were your friends still stayed your friends.
Well, and also, Lorraine, have you noticed that? Or I mean, for me anyway, I got a lot of messages afterwards. People saying, "I always knew. I just kind of always knew that
Ah,
you
yeah,
had
yeah.
the intuition. I could. You're one of those people I could always come to because you always have the answers to things." And that didn't surprise me. The people who came forward, or the people who are still coming forward, that who came to my demonstration, who I did a public demonstration, my first one in July, who came to that, or people who are coming to my class. I have a neighbor, she's a hairdresser, and very different kind of lifestyle for me, and but she's younger and hip and stuff, and but she's coming to my class, and it's like, people see the value. I think people see the value in what you do if you come by it honestly. If you're authentic about what you're offering, people see the value in that. And I think they don't think it's woo-woo when they respect you and they know they know that you know what you're talking about. So I think if you come as an expert on something, people will respect that and respect you, and not think it's weird.
And I like also what you just said about that is the authenticity. And that to me really speaks volumes. And when you speak about it from a personal experience and you're able to show up being authentic, people feel that.
Yeah, I think that, well, I mean, I don't have to explain this to you, but for the people watching, it's all energy. And, I think people would know if I got up there and I was BSing my way through through a class just to say get their money, which by the way, this class is free. I'm doing it as a fundraiser for this. It's a gallery, and I'm doing it as a fundraiser. So I'm asking people to donate a donation of their
Wonderful.
choice, but I'm doing two free classes. This is the first, and the second's going to be an intro to mediumship class. So the point about that is just that I think people will know. People know that you're authentic because it's in the energy. They can feel it about you. And also you can tell when someone's talking if they constantly look at their notes, or if they're looking at the audience, they know the subject matter. So yeah, I think authenticity sells way more than inauthenticity. So
Absolutely. Now tell me a little bit about your business, the
so
social
well,
media.
yeah, sure. So my background, I have a bachelor's degree in communications, and I have to say that I didn't complete my master's, but I did complete all the coursework from my master's. But at the end of it, right before I was to complete my thesis, that's when I lost my mom. So I won't explain why I had to drop out of college, but I did. I do have the opportunity to return, so I'm going to complete my master's finally. Um,
Woohoo.
so I've already done all the coursework. So my master's will be in public relations. And but it's something that I love. I mean, I've been a writer my whole life, since I was about 8. And I'm just I love writing, which has been so helpful with my mediumship, because I write intuitively, and that's a lot of clairsentience. But I find pleasure in creating, and we're all creators, but I love creating letters for people. I love creating marketing copy, if they need a press release, if they need anything. I love creating things for people. I've done websites for people. Have I just really have a lot of experience in different things, but I love create. I do all my own marketing, and I have some, really great marketing materials. I've got Canva, I've got GoDaddy Studio. I just have a lot of fun making stuff. And so, for me, I really wanted to be able to help people in the spiritual community who are trying to set up shop. And I'm not judging anyone on how long they've been a medium, so I just want to put that out there. If you just started mediumship, I would suggest wait a year, just at least, but I don't, it doesn't matter to me. When someone knows that they're ready, they're ready. And so and I can do everything from teaching them how to set up their business to doing a business strategy to creating the e-commerce, doing the SEO on the website, creating the website. I can do it with them, I can do it for them, and I can do the marketing, and I can teach them how to run their social media campaigns and advertisements and things like that. And I'm strictly doing it for spiritual businesses now. Until, I don't know, one day I decided I want to do it for a larger audience, but for now it's just to support, and my fees are very reasonable. So for anybody who thinks that something like what I do is beyond their budget, that's not true. Just anybody can reach out to me, because I will make it something that people can afford, even if it's doing an advertisement for $15 or $20.
That's wonderful, Beth.
Depends on my time, of
Wonderful.
course. If it's a small project that's simple, it could be $20. But if it's more entailed, then it might be a little bit more. But I also allow payments, so people don't have to pay the full amount, in the beginning. So yeah, I just want to be helpful, and that's another way to give back.
That's wonderful. And it is giving back. So I thank you for sharing all of that. Now, Beth, tell me, if someone wants to reach out to you, if someone wants to connect with you, where can they find you?
So my website is www.mediumbeth.com. There's a lot of stuff on there. I started with a pretty basic page, and I've kind of added resources and added information about me, and some of my classes are on there. And so my Facebook is Medium Beth. My Instagram is Medium Beth, and I'm on TikTok, but I think it's Medium Beth 11 on TikTok. I have some really good kind of tutorials for mediums and people seeking mediumship on TikTok, about what they should look for in a medium. And I did like a series, so that's pretty good. I should definitely do more on there. Manifest. So the business is only on Facebook. I don't have a website for that, although I do have a link to my on my website to the Facebook page, but it's Manifest PR. And the full name's Manifest Media Public Relations, but Manifest PR on Facebook. And you can just send me a private message, and I will get back to you, and I'm happy to quote anything out. And I do quoting, I do invoicing, so everything's fully professional. And yeah, and I love what I do, so it's a labor of love. I think we should all do what we love.
I agree. And I'd like to say thank you very, very much. I can feel your authenticity, and I can feel your love for spirit and being of service. And it is a pleasure to be able to take this time and talk with you.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. Can I just leave my email quick? I forgot to add that.
Yes,
email,
of course. Absolutely.
It's mediumbeth@gmail.com. So any questions, or I'm also happy to make referrals to other people. I don't always think I'm necessarily the best person for everything. So if I know somebody else who's a better resource for anything, people can reach out to me, and I'll pass them along.
That's wonderful. Thank you again, Beth. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for having me, Lorraine. I really appreciate it.
Bye for now. We'll talk soon.
Okay, great.